Good evening. Welcome to the May 18th, 2026 meeting of the Stillwater City Council. At this time, I will call the meeting to order, and I'll ask that you all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'm going to jump right into the consent docket. Councilors, questions, comments, or action on consent?
Yes, pull item E, please.
Item E. Councilors, anything further?
Motion to approve consent docket minus item E.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket minus item E. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that consent docket is approved. It's going to take us to public comment on items not scheduled for public hearing. I have several folks signed up. I don't think we have anybody else. I mean, it's next on the agenda, but I guess we could jump to item E. Councilor Harden, do you have questions on item E?
I do. Is there someone here that can answer some questions about item E, please?
Mark White, Public Works Director.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So a couple of questions for you. First of all, these cameras, tell me how they interface with traffic control signals up and down line from where the cameras are located.
They don't. They're intersection specific, so they're to detect vehicles, motorcycles, pedestrians, bicycles. So they're specific to the intersection.
So that seems, I'm not denying this is a great idea.
Yeah.
It just seems like if they're not interfacing upline and downline, we'd still have issues with traffic being green one direction and all of a sudden dumping a bunch of cars to this intersection, or not letting anybody through.
Yeah. So what I think might be so at each intersection there's a controller, and so at that controller they have the what allows you basically to synchronize from intersection to intersection. So they'll set up that in each of the intersections.
But
They coordinate downstream, and what happens is that one currently that one's in recall because it does not have the ability to detect. So the loops aren't working, doesn't have a camera. So 6 and Main can't detect traffic, so it's not coordinating with the rest. So what it actually does, you're coordinated from Perkins, but then when you get to Main Street, you hit one that's in recall, so it's just running a arrow for 7 seconds, a green east and west for 30 seconds, and so on.
So will these identify pedestrians, bicycles, motorcycles?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the no traffic does pick up each of them. So, like, especially with the bicycles and the motorcycles, it helps as far as being able, because we have some issues with motorcycles. The loops don't necessarily always give up. I ride a motorcycle and sometimes it doesn't recognize me. So
if a pedestrian's late crossing and there's somebody still in the intersection, it might hold the red for a while longer?
I'm not sure if it would do that.
Okay.
I could find out and email you.
So the last question is, will these do any facial recognition or tag readers or anything associated with these cameras?
No, they don't do that.
Okay.
So they're simply for detection, and they don't store data or anything.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you. Councilor Harden, action on the item?
Motion to approve item E from the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item E. Please vote. Vote of 5-0, item E from the consent docket is approved. All right, we'll jump back to item 4, public comment on items not scheduled for public hearing. I have 5 people signed up. I'm going to start with folks who are here to talk about item 7A on general orders, and then we'll move to one on the ordinance. and I'm going to call them just in the order that I've got them. So you'll have, please come up to the podium, introduce yourself, name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak on the item. We'll start with Evan Frank.
Okay, so this might be the first time I've done public speaking in my life, so just bear with me. But
No pressure.
anyway, no, so I know there's been discussions about.
Can you start with introducing yourself?
Oh yes, sorry,
Please.
Evan Frank, 1120 South Duck.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. No, I know there's been discussions about what to do with the roundabout, whether to keep it, whether to remove it. I'm a huge proponent of keeping it. I think that it does a really good job of calming down traffic downtown. It prevents anybody from coming in at high speed and trying to blow all the stop signs. It's a nice barrier that slows traffic down as they enter downtown. I also think that it's small enough that the typical issues you run into with pedestrians and roundabouts are not an issue there. It's not a long distance to cross like a lot of larger roundabouts are. I think it does a fantastic job, and I actually think we need more of them, personally. I think that most of the intersections downtown would benefit from being a roundabout. So.
Excellent. Thank you for your input. Appreciate it. Bobby Wintle.
3 minutes. Did it start yet? Okay. Hi, how's it going, everybody? Bobby Wintle, Stillwater, Oklahoma, 1911 West 3rd Avenue. That man back there is my neighbor. With a very simple Google search on roundabouts, you're going to bring up the Florida Department of Transportation, and it's going to give you all of this amazing information. Primary reasons for roundabouts: drastic safety improvements, reduce fatalities, show up to a 90% reduction in fatal crashes, and a 75% reduction in injury-causing accidents compared to stop signs or signals. Obviously, you have fewer conflict points. A traditional intersection has 32 points where vehicles can collide. A single-lane roundabout, like what we have, has only 8. As Evan said, low speeds. The tight circular design forces drivers to slow down, typically 15 to 25 miles per hour, making any other resulting accident much less severe. So no T-bone crashes, increased efficiency capacity. A light is going to keep people waiting. This increased traffic capacity at a roundabout is from 30 to 50%. So it's better flow, it's better for emissions, cost savings on gas, functional reliability, and the list goes on and on and on. I love roundabouts. I have a bunch of pet peeves in my life, and one of them is sitting at traffic stoplights when I don't have to, like Husband and 6th Street. Oh, it's getting better. Thank you guys for working on it so much. If it were a roundabout, all the people that come and visit 7th Street and downtown could come in, come out much quicker. I think roundabouts do need to exist in way more intersections as the budget allows. I understand it's really expensive. I do also want to say that these individuals that have run into the roundabout that we have, do we really think they wouldn't have run a stop sign and maybe killed someone? They took their car and they ran it into a huge concrete thing that has a beautiful statue. So why do we think that we should make changes based on something that maybe could have been actually worse if the roundabout hadn't been there? Lastly, I think that this is an education issue, and I would like to propose to all of you that if you give me the Winfrey Houston Theater for free, I will make programming for the public multiple times per year, maybe once per quarter, for education on traffic roundabouts, just like what we're talking about today, and how to use them and why they're so much better. And also, I encourage you to go to Europe and just go to Europe. That's all I have to say. All right, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your input. Stone Lambert.
Good evening. My name is Stone Lambert, and I'm here to promote not only replacing the roundabout with a bigger and better one, but installing more around Stillwater. Over the last 20 years, more than 40 people have been killed in traffic crashes here in Stillwater, 43 recorded deaths. Take 2021, for example. 5 people died in traffic-related accidents. 2 of them were just walking, not even driving a car. I can give you a whole bunch of statistics on how many people die all the time driving cars. But if we just look at the roundabout, since 2015, drivers have plowed into it again and again. First was a semi-truck driver in 2017. This one I didn't know about. It was a drunk motorcyclist running away from highway patrol at 143 miles per hour. And then the last one was a SUV. Every one of those drivers could have killed somebody, but instead they hit concrete. And that's actually the point. I understand it adds up in cost for repairs, but roundabouts don't just calm traffic, but it absorbs the consequences of bad driving. A head-on collision becomes a fender bender with a brick wall. A T-bone at a stoplight becomes a guy walking away saying, "I'm just lucky to be alive." We need more of these, not fewer. I'm asking the council to fund replacing the roundabout and to commit to a corridor strategy that puts them where data says they'll save lives. This goes on and on. The math and the science is just there. Roundabouts are just safer. They slow down cars, or they're supposed to if people know how to drive. The geometry eliminates the deadly crash types. So worst crash type is a T-bone, and it's pretty much, it lowers the chances of a T-bone happening because there's a giant barrier in the way. Like Bobby said, fewer conflict points. And then the last thing was, statistically, it's actually pretty interesting. You know, if you look at like Facebook and the Stillwater community page, you would think it's the worst idea in the world, but people actually learn to like them. So in communities where single lane roundabouts replaced stop signs, support went from 31% before construction to 63% shortly after. Follow-up surveys more than a year later showed support at 70% on average. And those who strongly opposed dropped from 41% to 15% after drivers actually used roundabouts. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Good timing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Corey Williams.
Corey Williams, 621 South Husband. I just, again, wanted to speak on behalf of the roundabout. I'm the property owner that has the northeast corner of that intersection. And luckily, one of the reasons to have so much traffic in that immediate vicinity. And I've spent an inordinate amount of time sitting in that giant window watching that roundabout. And I would agree with everything that everybody has said from a safety standpoint. I actually, it helps the traffic flow quite a bit. So instead of people trying to hang illegal U's on Main Street, they just go around the roundabout, which is nice if they're coming back to get a parking spot in front of Hatch or the meat company or one of the other businesses that are lining that, or if they want to go to Empire or Roundhouse. And so just as a business owner, I am one of the converts that Stone was talking about. Like, I was not a proponent of it in the beginning, kind of thought it should be a block further south, but it's there and I've enjoyed it. And I think functionally, which is what you guys should most be concerned about, it actually works extremely well at the thing that we are trying to do, which is to slow people down, give them a beautiful view of downtown Stillwater, and increase the safety for all the citizens that are walking around. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right, next up on a different topic, Steve Trost.
Hello, my name is Steve Trost. I'm at 2823 West 28th Avenue. Mayor Joyce, members of the council, thank you. I currently serve as director of the Institute for the Study of Free Enterprise at Oklahoma State University, where my job is to teach students about the importance of free and competitive markets, and in particular about the unintended consequences that arise when government intervenes in those markets. What I want to share tonight comes directly from that work. I also want to thank Director Barth, who has been generous with his time over the past couple of weeks in discussing these issues with me. The work that he and the city attorney's office have put into this ordinance is evident, and I support the vast majority of it. I should disclose my personal interest as well. My wife and I have operated a full-time short-term rental in Stillwater for 4 years. Under this ordinance, we would be grandfathered. The density cap as written would directly benefit us by limiting future competition on our block. I'm here arguing against my own financial interest because I believe the cap has problems that outweigh that benefit. Specifically, the cap can be gamed, and these are exactly the kinds of unintended consequences I teach my students to look out for. First, defensive licensing. Nothing in this ordinance prevents a homeowner from obtaining a short-term rental license they never intend to use. On a 20-unit block, only 4 licenses are available. A homeowner who opposes short-term rentals can grab one of those slots, pay the fee, never rent a single night, and permanently block a legitimate operator. Second, incumbent operators can weaponize this. An existing operator who wants to eliminate competition can pay a friendly neighbor to hold a license. The neighbor collects the payment, never operates, and the competition is locked out. You've given incumbents a tool to buy exclusivity not through better service, but through quota manipulation. Third, the cap creates a land rush. The moment this ordinance takes effect, every property owner considering future short-term rental use has an incentive to file immediately, not because they're ready to operate, but because waiting means their block might fill up. That's the opposite of the thoughtful, compliance-driven process this ordinance is designed to create. Fourth, the grandfathering provision locks all of this in. Existing operators like me are insulated. Every gaming strategy I just described plays out among new applicants competing for whatever slots remain. If the council determines that some form of density provision is necessary, I'd ask you at a minimum to differentiate between owner-occupied homes where the owner lives on the property and rents occasionally, and full-time investor-operated short-term rentals. A homeowner renting their spare bedroom on a football weekend is not creating the same neighborhood impact as an out-of-state investor running a year-round commercial operation. They shouldn't consume the same quota. Exempting or separately counting owner-occupied short-term rentals would protect the residents this cap claims to serve rather than punishing them for wanting to use their own homes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, councilors, that takes us to item 6 on the agenda, public hearings. Item 6A is receive public comment regarding the proposed operating budget for fiscal year 2026-2027 and consider action to incorporate changes presented during the public hearing and or the changes identified by the council and return to the council for review at a future meeting or direct staff to proceed with adoption of the budget as proposed in the attached schedule of at a future meeting. This is CC-26-90. Did we have good notice on this item?
Yes, we do.
Mr. Thulin.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Jarrett Thulin, Deputy Chief Financial Officer. We're here this evening for the public hearing related to the proposed FY27 operating budget. There have been no changes made to the proposed budget since the budget was presented on April 20th.
That's pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
Councilors, any questions? What's next in the process, Jared?
We'll come back after the public hearing. If there's any changes to be made, we'll incorporate those based on the motion made by council. And then after that, we'll come back for budget adoption on June 1st.
June 1st. Thank you. I don't have anyone signed up to speak on this item. Well, I should open the public hearing first and then say that we don't have anyone signed up to speak on this item. Was anybody here planning to speak on the budget? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Do you have a recommendation for us?
Our recommendation would be to direct staff to proceed with adoption of the budget as presented in the attached schedule by resolution at a future meeting.
Do we need a vote on that?
No, but I think staff would just like to know that there are no needed changes when they bring it back, because they won't bring it back for discussion and consideration. It'll just be for approval.
All right. Well, if you have comments or questions, councilors, this is the time to bring it up. Sounds like you should proceed to get us ready for adoption.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yep. Again, all of these budget hearings are always so anticlimactic because it seems like it's just a quick thing, but I know you all have been working on it. We've been reviewing it. And we will look forward to seeing it again. Item 7, general orders. 7A, presentation and discussion of the conceptual evaluation and planning level cost comparison for the rehabilitation of the 10th Avenue Main Street roundabout compared to conversion to a four-way stop intersection, including possible action. Mr. Millis, I'll let you take it from there.
Sorry for the delay. Good evening, Bill Millis, Director of Engineering. Just trying to maximize it.
Yeah, it's when you continue talking.
Okay. Last December, staff presented an update regarding our plans for rehabilitation of the roundabout at 10th and Main. And during that discussion, council asked for additional information, specifically a cost comparison between a roundabout and converting the intersection to a four-way stop. So staff engaged Goes & Associates to perform a conceptual evaluation and a cost comparison between those two alternates. So at this point, as soon as Dawn rescues me, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Gose with Gose & Associates to share the results of their evaluation. Perfect. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Stephen Gose, Gose & Associates. Like Bill mentioned, engineering department engaged us to look at conceptual level cost estimating. So of rebuilding the roundabout, rehabilitating the roundabout, and rebuilding the intersection as a four-way stop. So we've got a couple slides in here to kind of go over 2 slides on the plans and then a cost comparison at the end. So this is a rendering of what the modifications to the roundabout look like. The west side of the roundabout's in pretty poor shape from a pavement standpoint, so that'd be a full depth repair. New striping and signage at all 4 entrances to help with safety. And again, with a lot of this starts mimicking what's happened at 7th and 8th. So Alabac, who was the landscape architect on the Block 34 improvements, has a rendering, and they've been engaged to look at the conceptual layout of the middle part, and that the block wall that was there that's been taken down would be replaced with the hatchet stone, which are the big sandstone blocks around Block 34 right now. These wouldn't be that same mass, but they'd be the same style so that they would fit better contextually, and it provides that connection over to Block 34. The outer dimensions of the island stay the same. The outer dimensions of the planter would stay the same. And along with those signs and striping, there'd be solar lighting around the roundabout and at the approaches to help with safety. So.
Okay, one quick question. Stay the same as what? The original or what's there now?
The dimensions would stay the same of the outer roundabout, and there's still the foundation wall from the block wall that was around there, so that would be mimicked in the new roundabout.
The original dimensions you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So then this is a rendering of what would happen to rebuild it as a four-way stop. The curbs were pulled back when the roundabout was installed, so the entire intersection is going to have to get rebuilt to pull those curbs out, to take out the foundation that's in the middle. So full pavement replacement. Again, new striping and signage to match what's up and down the street. We come in the landscape islands and mimic what's along the corridor. And then I didn't mention in the last one, but light poles are proposed by Stillwater Electric in this that are on order, or actually they're in the yard ready for the other intersections. So that's the overview of the two. So then this is a high level comparison of the price between the two. So demolition, paving, lighting and striping, landscaping all grouped together. So you can see the construction subtotals, $116,000 to rebuild the roundabout, $238,000 to convert it to a four-way stop. The big differences are the demolition and the paving, and I mean they're all different, and highs and lows depending on which column you're in. And then the next level is the construction, so bonds and insurance, carrying a contingency, and then the last is the design and construction administration, both from an engineering and landscaping standpoint. So you can see overall to rebuild to a four-way stop is $174,000 over the roundabout rebuild. So that's what we got. Are there any questions on this?
Councilors, questions?
Stephen, can you remind us some of in the roundabout option, what some of the additional safety measures? So we have lighting. Was there anything else that was added
So
to that?
restriping, adding some additional striping, but really those solar lights that are on the ground level. I don't know that we've got. So this is, staff had prepared this the last time, so you can see there on the right, the LED pavement markers, and some pictures of what those would look like.
So those are lights that are embedded in the pavement themselves.
They're bolted down to the surface of the pavement, so they're raised a little bit to be able to see it. And they're solar powered, so you don't have to run wires and everything.
And then is there lighting on the statue now, currently? I was trying to remember if there's
ground lighting that
uplighting.
shines
Yeah.
up on the statue.
Yep. And that would.
So the purpose of those puck lights or embeds is you can see the shape. It's not really illuminated, but it's enough that you can see the shape of the roundabout and where the car should go. Make it more intuitive to follow it.
And that's correct. And as mentioned, Steve mentioned 7th, 8th, and 9th, as council kind of approved and gave guidance back in December. We'll have those new Block 34 lights at every intersection, and we'll be bringing that. We already have the lights here in the yard ready to install, but each of the 4 corners of this intersection will get the lights regardless of option 1 or option 2.
Does it have lights currently at all? No?
Not great lighting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, Councilor Harden, to answer your question, here's kind of that rendering of what the cross section and maintaining those diameters that are out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stephen, in the budget was the sign, the LED kind of like lit sign that was.
It's in the landscaping number.
Okay. So one of the renderings that staff showed back in December as well, I don't know if it's embedded in this. No. Was a kind of a downtown Stillwater 3D, lit display that can change colors, much like interlaced. And so that would give additional awareness of something right in front of you.
And you said there'd be the stone going around, and it'd be a different kind of stone than what we currently have.
What was out there was like a keystone block, like you get at most of the landscape stores, hardware stores. This would be stone, a natural stone, to mimic what's at Block 34.
Is it any more resistant to cars running into it?
They're both pretty darn dense,
Okay.
so probably buffs out easier.
Councilors, further questions? Is there a recommendation from staff on this item?
Thank you, Stephen. I did just want to add a little bit to say that, with either option, we'd intend to improve the safety. If it's a 4-way stop, it'd be similar to 7th, 8th, and 9th with the enhanced paint on the pavement, the short yield to pedestrian signs, the decorative stop signs. We'd refresh the striping that Stephen mentioned and make it a little more intuitive and more modern, like the shark's teeth that help. You can kind of see it there pretty faintly where the right turns are. They kind of tell you to yield to traffic in the circle. More signage to yield to pedestrians. So safety will be a priority, whichever option we go with. And on that topic, we also have, I think I have a slide. Yeah, we've enhanced, both of these photos are at 12th, looking northbound. So to reinforce to trucks not to drive down Main Street, routes them over to Duck. And if they're coming eastbound on 12th, tells trucks not to turn north onto Main Street. So some other measures there too to increase the safety and the convenience of driving in downtown, specifically at 10th and Main. And I will tell you that moving forward, based on council guidance this evening, our plan would be to proceed with design and then return to request authorization once we have construction bids. And I do be glad to try to address any more questions. We're also talking about the recommendation.
Any further questions?
So a comment, I was downtown a couple days ago and going southbound on Main, and there's a semi-trailer truck, about three vehicles in front of me. I tried to get up close enough to get a picture of him going through the roundabout. I could not, but he cut across the roundabout. As we've talked about before, that happens. So we've tried to fix the problem with northbound trucks. What about southbound trucks on Main Street?
There's signage also at 6th and Main.
And it's working so well. I'm being a bit facetious about that, but we can sign it all day long, but we're going to have trucks down there.
And yeah, we're not going to eliminate it. We're just trying to minimize it.
Right.
And the roundabout's designed so that fire trucks and big trucks can navigate it without hitting the roundabout.
And some enforcement, I think, would be a good idea also.
Okay. Thank you.
Get the police on that.
Yeah, I have friends that can help us with that.
Sorry, Officer Sensible.
I just wanted to thank the members of our community that came out to share some of their insights and thoughts. I really value kind of the perspective from folks that have businesses close by and have kind of seen it in action. I think from an urban planning perspective, I also really like roundabouts and would love to see them used more as a traffic calming opportunity. I think I know this one has been challenging, maybe to just the awareness of it and the size of it has been kind of challenging, but I appreciate everyone coming out and giving some thoughts about that roundabout.
I don't have any questions. I do have some comments. First, Bobby, I have driven in Europe. I have driven in New Zealand. I've driven in my hometown that has a giant roundabout. I think the intersection of Boomer and Duck and Eskridge would be a great place for a roundabout. I don't like this roundabout. I think it was ill-advised when it was created, and I think it's ill-advised to keep it. But I'm confident we're going to keep it. But I just don't think it's a good idea to keep this roundabout. Now, I do have a concern about the current design if we are gonna move forward, and that is it's a very small roundabout with a giant statue in the middle of it that limits visibility. If we're gonna keep it, I don't think we should keep the statue there. My opinion for what it's worth.
Further questions or comments? I'll add my 2 cents just for the fun of it. If I wasn't sitting up here, I would have been presenting at the podium along the same lines as what we heard. I think it's an excellent addition to our community. I think all of the evidence around roundabouts is that they are safer, that they do in fact do the job that we want it to do down there, which is to keep traffic slower and to minimize the amount of large traffic that comes through. I understand the concern that Councilor Clark just expressed about visibility with the statue. I don't know if I agree that it's that big of a problem, and the statue's awesome, so I would be in favor of keeping it. But I to the extent that there's a concern around the foliage or anything around the base of it to make sure that there are clearer sight lines, I think that's certainly worth taking into account. But I'm certainly in favor. Certainly not only because it's way cheaper to just keep it what it was, but also because it's an excellent addition to our community from a safety perspective and from a beautification perspective. So I assume we need a motion to recommend to staff that we will adopt or move forward with the roundabout option, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to direct staff to advance option 1 with the roundabout. Please vote. With a vote of 4-1, that motion passes. Thank you. Appreciate your work on it. Item 8, ordinances. Ordinance on first read, item 8A is ordinance 3606, an ordinance amending the employee retirement system, defined contribution plan for the city of Stillwater, providing retirement benefits for eligible employees of the city of Stillwater, Oklahoma, pertaining to the contributions by participants, providing for employer pickup of required contributions, providing for repealer and severability.
So this ordinance does pertain to the city employee retirement accounts through OKMRF. The ordinance would adopt a change to the plan that would allow employees to make a selection if they want to make Roth contributions. There's no financial impact to the city, so adoption of the ordinance would just implement the plan change.
Councilors, any questions, comments, or action on the item?
Motion to advance ordinance number 3606 to second read.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advance the ordinance. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, ordinance 3606 is advanced to second reading. Also on first reading, we have ordinance 3608, an ordinance amending the Stillwater City Code, Chapter 29, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Article 1 in general, by creating Section 29-23, use of handheld cell phones or communication devices in a school or construction zone, repealing all ordinances to the contrary, and providing for severability.
So this code change would create a new section of code, and it mirrors a recently adopted state law that would prohibit the use of handheld electronic devices and cell phones to compose, send, or read text messages holding or using cell phones. There are some limited exceptions for hands-free or voice-operated, or if the sole purpose of using it is in an emergency situation. It prohibits it in construction zones and school zones.
So if it's already in state statute, why do we need to put it in city ordinance and duplicate that and then have it become out of alignment with the state at some point in the future?
That's a good question. This was actually a request from the police department. Anytime we do adopt new state law provisions, it can create some confusion as far as the training division and, what do we do, what can we cite? They could cite another state law provision. As a best practice, most cities are adopting this. It's good to have on your code. Right now, the city code provision isn't quite like this state law provision. This version is better, so I would recommend adopting it.
All right.
So is this, so if I'm not in a school zone or a construction zone, I can be texting?
No, this is specific to use of handheld electronic devices in those areas. So there are all other provisions of the code are still enforceable. This exact section mirrors the new state law, and we're just creating a section for it.
So are there more significant penalties? Is that versus texting when you're driving anyway?
I'm not sure. I've not compared it to the texting and driving provisions. If you want that information, I'm happy to bring it back on second read.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I will ask for some clarity when we come to second read, because my understanding is that it's like now you can't get a ticket if unless you're actively doing something with your phone. This would, in school zones, even if you're just holding it, you can still get a ticket. Like, it doesn't require that they actually saw you sending a text or pressing the buttons if you're holding it. I think it's a more stringent standard, but we'd certainly be open to hearing more information on second read.
I'll bring that information.
Thanks. Thank you. Is there a motion on the ordinance first read?
Motion to advance ordinance 3608.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advance ordinance 3608 to second reading. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that ordinance is advanced. Ordinance 3609 is an ordinance amending the Stillwater City Code by amending Chapter 33 Parks, Events, and Recreation, Article 1 in general, Section 33-15 Camping Prohibited, exceptions, repealing all ordinance to the contrary, and providing for severability.
So this is another request from PD to improve our current code provision. Again, this would mirror an applicable state law provision. It would revise our current ordinance from overnight camping to unauthorized camping, which would allow us to mark things as unauthorized. It provides for a graduated offenses. For example, there would be a warning and an offer of assistance, and then after that there would be a first conviction, would be a fine not to exceed $50. A second offense would be not to exceed $100, and a third or subsequent offense not to exceed $200. It's my understanding that these changes would help when there is a need for enforcement.
Questions, comments, or action on the ordinance?
I move to advance ordinance 3609.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advance the ordinance. Please vote. Ordinance is advanced with a vote of 5-0. Item D is ordinance 3610, and I think we have a request from staff to pull this one for now.
Yes, this will come back at a later date.
All right, thank you. On second read, we have ordinance 3604, an ordinance amending the Stillwater City Code by amending Chapter 23 Land Development Code by repealing Article 5, Use Categories and Limitations, Division 4, Residential Short-Term Rental, in its entirety and creating and adopting Chapter 23 Land Development Code, Article 5, Use Categories and Limitations, Division 4, Short-Term Rentals, Section 23-115.1, Definitions, Section 23-115.2, Permitted Districts, Section 23-115.3, Short-Term Rental License Required, Compliance with applicable codes, Section 23-115.4, Application Form and Process, Section 23-115.5, Denial, Revocation, Notice, and Hearing and Complaint Process, Section 23-115.6, Covenants, Deed Restrictions, and Overlay Requirements, Section 23-115.7, Penalty, Repealing all ordinance to the contrary and providing for severability. Counselors.
So, Mayor, I do have just a couple of verbal changes from the version that's in the packet and was presented on first read. They're mostly cleanup. I've provided those at your seats, and there are extra copies available in the room. I'll just briefly walk through those. They're highlighted for ease of viewing. There were times where we were referring to Code of Ordinances and Stillwater City Code, so we've just made all of those changes so that we're consistently referring to the code by the same term. And then the one substantive change is in Section 23-115.4, subsection 5. It has to do with proof of valid property insurance. The first read version set a coverage amount of $100,000. After further discussion with staff and reviewing other ordinances, we've removed the amount and are just going to require proof of current valid property insurance. The decision was made mostly in part of the amount of proper property insurance, depending on the properties, may vary. We know that we want them to provide that they have property insurance, but couldn't really find what that right number was. So this still ensures that there is insurance as part of the administrative application process.
Okay, I'm going to start with that one. So it did say a certificate of liability insurance coverage. This just says valid property insurance. I haven't asked. I don't know if there's an insurance agent in the room, but if you can buy property insurance that just covers the replacement of the property and doesn't actually include liability insurance, or if someone gets hurt on your property and there's insurance coverage for the liability that you might incur. I agree with taking the amount out because it's going to be, kind of an issue based on the property value, but I think it should still refer to it being liability insurance rather than just coverage on the house itself. I think what we want them to have is liability coverage, so that just like we require liability coverage for an automobile, so if you hurt somebody with what you're doing, that you've got insurance coverage that will help make that right. So I would suggest that it still needs to have the word liability in it. But again, not an insurance expert.
So again, that was based on reviewing what other cities were requiring for proof of. We can certainly add that. Would you like it to say proof of current valid property insurance and general liability insurance?
Current valid property insurance, including liability coverage.
Okay. I have changed it to say proof of current valid property insurance, including liability coverage.
Thank you. Questions or other comments on the ordinance?
Yes. So as we were redrafting this ordinance, was there any consideration of cap manipulation? Because frankly, this concept was a new idea to me today. So was that taken into consideration at all, the fact that somebody could just basically tie up their whole block by getting licenses that they're not actually going to use?
I was also not thinking along those lines.
I guess I'm not devious enough, but
I mean,
is it a question? That's probably a question for staff.
Yeah, we would have to bring back. I know that some communities have gone to look at the owner-occupied, or owner-occupied STRs, so that maybe some families, and there are a lot in our community that rent their homes out for Mid-South or for big events or like football game days, but they're great neighborhood members during the rest of the year. And so that can be a challenge to enforce, as you can imagine.
How would you verify it?
It's
That's
very
my
difficult.
Concern. Like, you're going to go watch their house the other weekends and make sure they're actually living there. I agree that is a totally different use case than when someone is an investor and they're just buying a property and it's vacant, 90% of the year. But I don't know how we would possibly write something and enforce something that actually would treat those things differently.
I'm just thinking out loud, but hypothetically, you could have a full-time license and an owner-occupied license that were different licenses that you could monitor and track separately because of how they applied.
I agree with that. I just don't know how we would, if you went and said, I want an owner-occupied license, who's going to go sit at your house and make sure you actually live there?
Right.
Versus, because I would assume it's a lower regulatory burden if you live there, but how would we enforce it?
Well, when we apply for a license, is that not under penalties of perjury? I attest that.
This is true, yeah. Yeah, but then you'd have your neighbors, we'd be encouraging neighbors to be sitting out and staking out their neighbors' houses to see, hey, and then coming in and saying, hey, this person doesn't actually live at this house.
Do we think that people that do that kind of rental, are they officially like on a site where they would be getting, are those people right now getting any sort of?
Yeah, I know several people that live in their homes and rented them out, like for Boys from Oklahoma for just that weekend, made $1,000 or $1,200 renting their house out for the weekend, and they moved back in after those people left, and they do it on Airbnb.
Yeah. So to the official enough that we would ask that they would have a permit.
Sure.
Yeah. And the new requirements require that the permit number be listed on the online listing agent. Yeah. So
Could we lay this over until our next meeting possibly? And that way we could verify the language around insurance to make sure it's right. And also ask staff to look at this idea of owner-occupied versus full-time, and see if there's any way to try to put that into the ordinance?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to doing that. I think the question's going to be, if we made that distinction, it would be because we'd say, if it's an owner-occupied short-term rental, that is not creating the problem that we're seeing of investor-owned properties that are being taken off the market and used as short-term rentals and therefore aren't available for people to buy or people to rent long-term. And so we have a shortage of that housing. If we can't figure out a way to enforce that, I don't know that there's I guess we could look at it.
Well, that's the point of asking staff to look at it. And there's, as far as I know, there's no rush to get this done this week, right?
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I think the question around caps and whether the sort of manipulation of the cap thing, again, is going to be one of those things that's just really, at some point, you've got to draw a line. And so unless we're saying no caps at all, we're not ever going to change it. And so I don't know that there's any way. And the fact that only 3 existing blocks in the whole, however many blocks do we have in the city? 3 out of
many,
several hundred.
Mayor, may I ask Director Barth a question?
Oh, please.
Did you discuss owner-occupied? Wasn't there an enforcement discussion, at least that I recall, about distinguishing?
So we did look at owner-occupied. We looked at lots of things. For owner-occupied, a lot of communities define that as living in a house 275 or 290 or different numbers of days throughout the year. And we just came to the conclusion that we wouldn't know how to enforce it. How could we verify that you've lived there 300 days a year? Or, there again, you can be devious in lots of ways. You can say, I live here. Your neighbor could say, oh, yes, he lives there. There's lots of ways people can get around things. So no matter what we do or how we change this, people are going to find ways to do something else maybe. I'm certainly happy to go back and look at other options if you would like us to. More than happy to do that. But we did look at owner-occupied because there are communities that treat them differently versus if you, and it seems like it's different. When I've rented Airbnbs before where people live on premises versus not living there, there's a different market. Some people don't want to live with other people. strangers maybe. But it's it's different when you have someone who's living there. Maybe the neighbors around that property feel like it's better that there's the owner living there versus it's just a house where there's people coming and going and they don't know any of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess while I don't have a problem with us laying it over and asking some of those questions, I don't know that we're going to get any better answers than what we've got. I mean, I think this is going to end up being some arbitrary line being drawn somewhere, and yeah.
And I think if it comes down to we don't know how we would enforce that, I just think it makes it problematic to put anything in a policy or a code that we don't know how we'd enforce.
But allow us time to bring back, to at least examine it, and we'll bring it back to a future agenda.
Just a question, so I make sure I know what direction I give my staff that works with them. Okay, so bring back some options or research or what other cities do, how they treat owner-occupied differently than what would not be owner-occupied. As it pertains to then, is the idea that then if it was owner-occupied, the density cap would not apply?
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially,
I
okay.
think that's what.
I just want to make sure that if there was something further about the density cap, and then just to confirm with somebody who may be an insurance professional that the requirement we put in is something they can actually get and provide. Is there anything else that you'd like us to bring back with staff and my team?
I mean, I think it's worth looking into the concern that's raised about gaming.
Oh,
the
just
cap,
getting the
right?
license
If you're
and then
just
not
getting
using
the
it.
license and not using it,
Okay.
is there something we could put in there to say, if it hasn't been rented at least once in the year, that the license will, expire? Although again, I don't know how we're.
Yeah, I saw some examples where it had to be like advertised to be sold, but not necessarily rented. Again, I think there might be a opportunity to abuse that approach as well, but I didn't see any examples that required actual rentals, but advertising, we can look at that.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, as we talked about looking at a third-party software that would help us with enforcement of the licensure, the same company can help us identify, you've got addresses with licenses, they've never advertised on any sites. So we could know pretty easily if somebody's trying to game the system.
Yeah, but we might need to add something in there that says your license has to be actively used.
Yes.
Or else.
Yeah, we would have to add something else if we wanted to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable thing to look at too.
I do think I wasn't at the meeting from when it was read the first time, but I do think the density cap is very important in order to maintain kind of the fabric of our neighborhoods and the availability of housing and affordable housing in our community. I think it's something, especially I think in a college town where this is something we face maybe more so than other communities, and so I think maintaining that density cap is something that's really important for us to consider, even as we look at, adjustments to that.
Absolutely. But thanks to Mr. Trost for bringing up some of these issues that we hadn't thought about and helping us avoid some unintended consequences. So we'll do we need to take any action?
Yeah, let's table it. I was just trying to decide if we should table it to a date certain, since we've already had first read of it. I think to be safe, let's table it to a date certain. And I was looking at the date of the next meeting, which is June 1st. It might be advisable to table it to June 15th, just to allow sufficient time.
I'll move that we table the item to June 15th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table ordinance 3604 to June 15th. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the item will be tabled until our June 15th meeting. Reports from the officers and the board. Ms. Carnley.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Moore.
Yes, I've got a couple. In observance of Memorial Day, city offices will be closed next Monday, May 25th. Trash and recycling service will not be impacted, so go ahead and put out your trash bins, and we will have crews there working on the holiday to pick them up for you. So, and also on our website at stillwaterk.gov, we have a list, a calendar of all the holidays and everything for waste collection. So, great resources on our website. In addition, I another announcement. It's exciting as we've talked about a lot publicly with all of our water infrastructure, the important projects going on at our water treatment plant. In particular, we've had two $25 million projects, as you all know, going on at the water treatment plant. The finished water pump station and the recovered water pump station are nearing completion, which is really exciting. So that's that first of the $25 million projects. So commissioning will begin in the upcoming weeks for the recovered water pump station, and hopefully in June, James reported that the finished water pump station will be active. So that's the critical kind of bottleneck that you need to upsize first before you begin doing all the other upgrades that we're doing. In addition, the project that's trailing that one that is already in action, the chemical package, all those upgrades, that's going really smooth. Some of those key components are actually getting ready to be operable as well. So exciting work going on at the water treatment plant. So hats off to James and Jason and the crews out at the water treatment plant.
Spent some time on the radio talking about things that happen in the city that nobody really sees. And when you guys upgrade pumps and chemical buildings and that sort of thing at the water treatment plant, nobody is out there watching most of the time. But we really need that stuff to happen, and appreciate the work that everybody on the staff is doing to get that done. Vice Mayor.
Yes. Last week, we had the pleasure of welcoming athletes, families, volunteers, and fans to Stillwater for the Special Olympics Oklahoma Summer Games, one of my favorite weeks in Stillwater. Congratulations to all the competitors who once again showed their skills, determination, and camaraderie. We'd also like to thank the many volunteers, including dozens of our City of Stillwater staff who helped make this another successful Summer Games.
Always fantastic time. We spent some time out volunteering as part of my day job at Interworks, and I know there were a lot of city staff out there. Christy Morrison on the radio this morning also was talking about how we need to make sure that we're continuing to find as many volunteers as possible, because that is the biggest summer games in the entire North American continent for the Special Olympics, and that can't happen unless we have lots of people out there volunteering. So put it on your calendar for next year. Councilor Hawkins.
The weather is warming up, which means it is time for our city splash pads to open. This Wednesday, May 20th, the splash pads at Boomer Lake Park and Southern Woods Park will spring to life, once again welcoming families for a summer of cool fun. Other summer activities will be listed on our community calendar at stillwaterok.gov/calendar, including events hosted by the library and the parks departments.
Excellent, thank you. The water feature on Block 34 is not really a splash pad, and it's on already, right? That's like functional. There's always kids out there too. Council Clerk.
The voter registration deadline for Oklahoma's June 16 primary election is this Friday, May 22. If you're requesting an absentee ballot, that deadline is June 1. Among the many things on the ballot, this primary election includes choosing candidates for governor, lieutenant governor, state senators and representatives, U.S. representatives, and an open U.S. Senate seat. In other words, you don't want to miss out. But of course, we encourage every eligible voter to register and get involved in the civic process no matter what's on the ballot. It's a privilege and a right to be part of the democratic process. And what a great way to mark our nation's semi-sesquicentennial.
I think somebody needs to keep track of whether he says that word every meeting between now and July 4th. I did just text my recently turned 18-year-old son that he needs to make sure he's registered to vote before Friday.
Good for you.
Thank you for the reminder. Councilor Harden.
Yes, join us on Thursday, July 2nd for the 250th birthday bash at Block 34. Then come on out to Boomer Lake Park on Friday, July 3rd for our annual fireworks show. That leaves July 4th open for a full day of Saturday celebration with friends and family. Saturday's 2026 4th of July plans promise to be bigger and better than ever. As we get closer to July, more info will be shared on City's social media website. Be sure to follow at StillwaterOK.gov on Instagram, Facebook, and bookmark stillwaterok.gov/boomerblast. As a heads up, City Hall will be closed on Monday, July 6th in observance with holiday.
Excellent, thank you. I will remind you all that it's graduation season. Meridian Tech is honoring their grads this Wednesday and Thursday, May 20th and 21st. And then on Friday, May 22nd, Stillwater High School will send its class of 2026 across the graduation stage and into the world, including at both graduations, my son Thomas. So excited for him. Congratulations to all of our graduates on their accomplishments. We will also want to take this opportunity to remind residents that we'll see an influx in visitors, so be patient on the roads and watch out for pedestrians, especially around those graduation sites. Anything further? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the City Council. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the Stillwater City Council is now adjourned. This time I'll call to order the Stillwater Utilities Authority meeting for May 18th, 2026. Trustees, questions, comments, or action on the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the SUA consent docket is approved. There's nothing further on this agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the Stillwater Utilities Authority will now be adjourned. And at this time, I'll call to order the Stillwater Economic Development Authority meeting for for May 18th, 2026. Getting ahead of myself. Trustees, questions, comments, or action on the consent docket?
Motion to approve consent docket?
We have a motion and a second to approve consent. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that consent docket is approved. Seeing nothing further on the agenda, I will move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the Stillwater Economic Development Authority is now adjourned, and that concludes our meetings for the evening.